was a pretty interesting thing. I thought I would share. Anyway, so we're here on Erev Shabbos Chizuk, Erev Shabbos of Behar, Bechukotai. We're going to say Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. We are finishing Sefer Vayikra this Shabbos. We're finishing the Sefer of Kedusha. Before we enter the Sefer of Bamidbar, we spoke earlier this week about the klalos and the tochacha, why that needs to come as tichle shana v'kililotea. Today I want to focus, again, we just had Lag BaOmer this week. If you look at the last Mishnah in Shas, so the last Mishnah in Shas quotes Rav Yeshua ben Levi, who says, Atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu le'anchil lekol tzadik v'tzadik shai olamot. 310 עולמות, שנאמר להנחיל אויבה יש, ועצרותיהם המלא. Yeshua ben Levi quotes and he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of days will give every tzaddik 310 worlds in order to give him a schar, and he quotes a pasuk, lehanchil oyava yesh, comes Reb Shimon Bar Yochai in the Sefer HaZohar and says, what does it mean, lehanchil oyava yesh? It's referring to Yovel and Shmitta. The word yesh, not only is it gematria 310, but it's also the Rashi Tevos for Yovel and Shmitta, which means that there is a secret. There is something unique in the mitzvah of Yovel, the Jubilee year, and Shmitta, the 7th sabbatical year, that we have an opportunity to get Shai Olam is 310 worlds of schar from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does that mean? Reb Shimon Yochai is telling us a remez over here. It's not just that, Yesh is Yovel and Shmitta. There's something fundamental about the mitzvahs of Yovel and Shmitta that can help enhance our life. But I want to first focus on the word yesh. The word yesh comes from the word. You see, every word, a lot of words in Hebrew, they come from a bigger word, like eich, how, comes from the word eichut, which is quality. So it's like, how did they do it? Eich, so it comes from the word eichut, or ma comes from the word mahut. Like, what is it? What's the essence of it? So it comes from the word mahut. So you have different words that come from a deeper word. So yesh comes from the word yishut. Yishut is myself, my core. See, we live in a very complex world. Each and every one of us, we have so many different circles in our lives as we grow up. We have the circles of our community, which Baruch Hashem is a great circle to be a part of. We have the circle of our friends, of our business partners, of our, acquaintances from different parts of the world. And especially in our generation, it's a global economy. So people are working, they're working everywhere, and they have people that they know from all over the place. So I belong to so many different circles, and a lot of times it's hard for people to understand, what is my true identity? What is my yishut? Who am I? Because a lot of times we identify ourselves not really based on what our core identity is, but rather what we identify with. See, so the most basic form of identifying with something is like a sports fan, right? I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a Yankee fan. I love this sports team. Now, there's something fascinating about sports fans, because they could love a certain player, say a big basketball player. Nowadays, LeBron James, right? They love him. Cleveland, he's amazing, amazing. And then he leaves to a different sports team, and now they hate him. Now, what happened? It's the same guy. How come they won? When he was wearing this jersey, they loved him. When he switched the shirt, they hate the guy. Now, what happened? Why? Because they identify with a certain team. The team sort of like, I identify with my city, and the way I identify is with this team, and I like the people on my team, but the moment they're not on my team, so they went to a different team, so they're traitors, and now it's not the person that I like, it's like the team. I identify with the team. I'm a Yankee fan, so I feel that I'm winning and that I'm losing and that I have a struggle through somebody else's playing. So, but that's not my true identity, right? But it's also our different circles. So now, what if I'm, we're in the middle of להרכיב את הממשלה, or in America, I'm a Democrat. So is that my identity, or I identify with those values? I'm a Republican. Is that who I am, or I just like those values more than the other values, right? So when we talk about identity, a lot of times people confuse between what they identify with to what their true identity is. And that's what the word yesh, yeshut, really comes from. Like yesh means it's the real being. It's here. It's like the difference between Yaakov and Esav, how they refer to what they have. Yeshli kol or yeshli rav. I have a lot. That is my yesh. That's what I have. That's what I identify with, the concept of having more and more and more. Or yeshli kol. I have kol tzorki. I have everything that I need. Do I identify with this, with my job? I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a physician or a programmer. But what happens if I'm not a programmer anymore? I stopped. I retired. So did my identity change? See, a lot of times we live in a world where people identify themselves based on what they identify with, but that's not their core identity. And that's really what I believe Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is telling us. Someone who wants to reach and to get 310 worlds, which means living this life to the fullest and then meriting to live in the world to come to the fullest, he needs to really understand what yesh is, and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai gives us a remez. Yesh stands for Yovel and Shmitta. Why is that? Because imagine a society where once every 7 years, everyone stops working, and therefore they're not doing. I'm not a farmer this year. I'm not. Because I'm not doing it anymore. Imagine that once every 7 years, all of the bills that you owe other people, that other people owe you, they sort of get undone before we invented the Prusbul. Imagine that every 50 years, all of the real estate that your family has accumulated in the last 50 years, it hits a reset button and it goes back to the original families. And there are no slaves every 7 years. They go out to freedom, and everyone, and definitely, and even if they want to stay, by the end of 50 years, they go free. There's a concept in Judaism that is built to allow us to connect to who we really are. One of the things that I found during the last 2 months that we're at home and that we're meeting over Zoom, and our relationship as a community and as individuals in the community, even though we've been far away from one another, but yet we meet and we choose to do certain actions, even though it's through the internet, allowed us to really connect on a deeper level to each other and even to ourselves. And I try to think, like, what are we taking with us from this time period? Baruch Hashem, it's starting to wind down and to be behind us. If I were to choose one good thing that happened from this time period, what would it be? What would that thing be? Would it be that I had more time to slow down? I'll share with you personally, as a rabbi, I was able to slow down and to have shalosh shudas with my children for the first time in 4 or 5 years. Because normally I give a Gemara shir between Mincha Marv, which I love. But now I was able to slow down. I was able to be with my family more. I was able to be with my children more. I was able to be at home more. I was maybe even more busy because I was out on the computer talking to everyone across the world. And I need to find that balance for myself. And everyone needs to look for himself. What was the best thing that happened to him because he had to slow down and stop from the regular race of life? Now imagine that you could take only the positive things that just went on without any of the negative things. It's not that we're confined to being at home. It's not that we're confined, that there's a pandemic that is fatal, chas v'shalom. Shmitta year was society and humanity choosing to slow down and to connect to who we are. Who am I? What are my values? What's life all about? What am I living for? What are my goals? What are my visions? Am I aligned with my personal goals? Am I aligned with my communal goals? That is exactly what Shmitta is all about. It gives us that space to connect with my true identity. If I go to shul every single week, and that's a part of the culture, and it's a place to meet people, and it's a place to, and it's very, very nice. That's great. But now that I don't have shul, do I still get up and daven, right? That's a question of my identity. Is it a part of who I am? Is it a value that I believe in? What I identify with is usually something that is outside of me. It's my job. It's a political party. It's a sports team. I identify with that group of people because I see groups of people that I like what they're doing or the values that they represent. But that still is not my identity. My identity is self-standing. What do I look like when I am alone? When I'm not part of any group? I identify with a certain group because it helps me get to where I want to go. But my true identity is, who am I? What am I? What is my yesh? What is my yes? What is my yishut? What is my being? And I believe that's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is teaching us. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying, lehanchil oava yesh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, asir HaKadosh Baruch Hu, latet lekol tzadik v'tzadik shai olamot. To give every righteous person 310 worlds. Shai, Shmitta, and Yovel is the tools to help us really live up to our potential in this world. And when a person is able to slow down by choice, to take a sabbatical year, can you just imagine what society would look like if people would take a sabbatical year? Like a real sabbatical year, once every 7 years. It would be an unbelievable thing for themselves, for their relationships, for all of society. I believe that when the Torah says that I will give you my bracha on year 6, is that if we live our life in a culture of values and of mitzvos and of looking out for one another, so then that itself is the bracha. Then we've created a system that allows us to make it through a sabbatical year as a community and as a society. Of course, Shmitta year doesn't mean that you stop doing everything. We do everything to, to still sustain us, but we're not focused on our job. We don't identify with our jobs. We identify with our values, with who we really are. And I think that's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is here to teach us. And I think there's even a higher level of understanding here. Because you see, there are two basic values that guide society building, right? All the great minds in the last 100 years, even more. It's ever since the beginning of communities and societies. There's always that fight. What is the best way to build the best type of society of living together? So there's two values that drive the great thinkers. There's the value of freedom, that everyone needs to have free choice, right? To liot am chofshi be'artzeinu, and America it's the value of freedom to do what you want to do. There's also the value of equality, of making sure to give everyone an equal opportunity and an equal chance. Now, when you take both of those to the extreme, so let's say I want equality. So equality, the extreme of that would be communism. It's like we all give our food, we work hard, but everything goes to the mother state, and we spread it out equally. So there's equality, and we enforce the equality, but there's no freedom because we have to enforce the equality. If you take it too far to the extreme. The other way, if freedom is the ultimate value, so then what do we find very quickly is that the people who made it big, or either they worked hard or they got lucky, so then they're rich, and the rich get richer, and the poor have a harder time, fixing the gap. And then, even though there is freedom of the market, a free market, but yet it seems like there's no equality. There's no opportunity for equal chance for people who were born into a poorer family. They can't invest as much in education. They can't. So how do we create it together? So I think this is what Torah teaches us in this week's parsha, is that they can't really coexist together at the same time, but they could coexist over a span of time. And that's what really happens. Every 7 years, all of the slaves, he was too poor, he sold himself to slave. Now he has money and he could start his life again. You get a free chance to start your life. Everyone actually, none of us are working this year. We're focusing on our values and our meaning and our purpose, and we're giving all of the extra produce. It's hefker. Even people who didn't work, they could have food for the year. They could realign their goals. They could recalculate their plans, and they could start with a fresh new start next year. And definitely at the end of 50 years, there's no such thing as a family of real estate that's been going on for 200 years. There's no such thing, because every 50 years, all of the real estate goes back to the original family. So yes, you could be rich, your family could be rich for 50 years, but it can't just be that you own all of the property, you own half of the city. It goes back to its original owners at the end of 50 years. So you can make it, there's freedom, but then there's also equality to give everyone a second chance. So Shmitta and Yovel, they help us to create a society that will help one another, but they also help us understand with who am I? What's my identity? What's my yesh? What's my yishut? What is my personal, not just what I identify with, but who I really am? And I believe that we've experienced it together, not only in this country, but in the entire world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, ow, big break. He pulled the handbrakes, he hit the brake. Everyone had to stop. Nature started getting clean. The air is clean. It was Baruch Hashem a rainy year. The Kinneret is up like it's never been up before. Ozone layer is getting clear. There is no fires on Lag BaOmer coming in from our windows. There's no pollution from the fire. There's something that we were sort of forced into in the last 2 months. But I'm trying to imagine what it would look like if it didn't have any of the negative side effects. That it wasn't that we were forced to be in our homes, but we weren't running, and we had opportunities to meet up in our shuls and to study together and to learn together and to be creative and to come up with new ideas and to come together as groups and to just be producing creative things for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren, for Am Yisrael. I think this is what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai meant, lehanchilo yava yesh, to give the tzaddikim 310 worlds, means somebody who understands the lessons of Shmitta, the lessons of Yovel. He's a person who's going to be able to live his life to the fullest to get the ultimate reward. Shabbat Shalom. This is the lesson that I thought to share with you today. And I'm happy that you're with us here on this call. I'm going to unmute us now.